You ever stare at an empty glass and realize it tells more about your life than any shrink ever could? Mine was sitting dead center on the kitchen table. A short tumbler, nothing fancy. One of those engraved ones from a bourbon-tasting tour Nina insisted we do back when we still thought couples' activities could fix things. The last few amber drops had crystallized at the bottom, like sugar that gave up. That glass had been there for days. I just kept walking past it like it was a reminder I didn't ask for. The only light in the room was a brass desk lamp, one of those old banker's lamps with the green shade, throwing a warm halo over the divorce papers I'd spread out like a crime scene. I'd written notes in the margins, timelines, phone records, restaurant receipts. There was a manila folder labeled Leopold's Diner, 3:47 p.m., April 2nd, tucked under a grainy photo of Nina climbing into the back seat of a midnight blue Tesla Model S. Not my Tesla. Not my day, either. I wasn't drinking tonight, not because I turned over a new leaf, just because I needed my head clear. So when the doorbell rang at 11:38 p.m., I was sharp, not surprised, just alert, like the moment before a storm hits and the air goes still. I opened the door halfway. 2 uniforms stood under the porch light. Officer Williams and Officer Keene, names stitched above their hearts like they were door-to-door salesmen from the We Ruin Lives department. Both were too polite for this hour. "Mr. Carter?" the taller one asked. I nodded. "We'd like to ask you a few questions about your wife. May we come in?" I didn't move. "You got a warrant?" The younger one, Keene, shifted on his feet. "No, sir, it's just she's been admitted to St. Vincent Medical Center." That got my attention. I blinked. "What happened?" Williams cleared his throat. "She's been shot. Multiple times." The silence between us stretched. A couple of bugs buzzed the porch. Light. Somewhere inside, my fridge clicked to life. "Is she dead?" I asked. "We don't have a confirmed status yet. She's in surgery." I opened the door a little wider but didn't step back. "And why are you here?" They exchanged a glance. "She was not alone when it happened," Keene said. "There was a man with her." I raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. Not me." "No, sir." Now that got a smile out of me. A tight one. "Well," I said, "I suppose this is the part where I tell you I have no idea what she was doing in a motel with another man. But then I'd be lying. I've got files." I turned, walked back to the table, and came back with the manila envelope. Inside were screenshots of text messages with a contact named Sarah, a woman Nina had been meeting for brunch at least twice a week. Sarah, of course, didn't exist. Unless you count burner phones and dumb lies as living things, there were time-stamped receipts, hotel check-ins, and the crown jewel, a photo of Colin Ashford's Tesla, with Nina practically melting into the seat like a high schooler sneaking out after curfew. I handed it over. Williams flipped through the pages. "This is detailed." "I'm a planner," I said. "And when your wife starts smelling like a different man's cologne, you either cry into a pillow or start taking notes." They didn't laugh. Cops rarely do. After a few more questions, they left. No handcuffs, no suspicion, not yet. I sat back down at the table and stared at that empty glass again. Funny how fast the world can flip. One moment, you're the betrayed husband planning for divorce. Next thing you know, your soon-to-be ex-wife is bleeding out in a budget motel, and suddenly you're a person of interest without even having left the house. Karma's got a hell of a sense of humor. At 6:13 a.m., I was staring at my phone like it owed me answers. I'd been up all night, not out of worry, but because my brain was running laps around a fire I didn't start. I finally called Linda Morales. My lawyer. Ex-prosecutor. Talks like a chainsaw in heels. She picked up on the second ring. "If you're calling this early, someone better be dead or pregnant," she said. "Technically, one guy is dead. My wife got shot. And I'm pretty sure neither of them were pregnant." Silence. Then a sigh. "Jesus, Ray. What happened?" "She was in a motel with a guy named Colin Ashford. His wife walked in and emptied a Glock into the bed." Linda whistled low. "You got a flair for the dramatic." "I didn't write it. I'm just reading the script." "Police think you're involved?" "Not officially. Yet. I handed them a package of evidence with her name on it last night." That, a boy, she said. Listen, if you go to the hospital, keep your distance. Don't touch her, don't cry, don't confess, and for God's sake, don't bring flowers. I cracked a smile. So, no balloon that says, sorry you got caught. Cheating? Linda actually laughed. That's how bad things were. I took a shower, put on my gray Henley jeans and my scuffed Red Wings. The same boots I wore the day I proposed to Nina in Vermont. They'd aged better than the marriage. At St. Vincent Medical Center, the lobby smelled like antiseptic and vending. Machine coffee. I found her parents sitting in stiff chairs, looking like they'd just been hit by the weather report from hell. Robert Simmons was the kind of guy who wore polos to funerals and thought emotions were a form of weakness. Ellie, his wife, clutched a crumpled tissue like it owed her money. Ray, she whispered, standing up. She's in surgery still. They won't tell us anything. Robert just stared at me. Not angry, just broken. I sat down slowly. There's something I need to tell you, I said, and then I did. I told them about the fake friend Sarah, the hotel receipts, the photos, the car. I didn't yell. I didn't dramatize. I laid it out like a post-mortem. Ellie's mouth opened, then closed. Her hands trembled. Robert leaned forward, hands clasped tight. You're saying she was cheating on you, and that's why this happened? I nodded. He rubbed his eyes. Jesus Christ. There was a long pause. I didn't want to believe it at first, he said, but I've seen how she changed. Cold, distant. You kept this to yourself? I was gathering evidence. We were 2 weeks from court. He looked at me for a long moment. You were the son I wanted, he said. I'm sorry she did this to you. And for the first time in, hell, maybe years, I felt tears burn the back of my eyes. Not from heartbreak, just relief. Like someone finally saw the wreckage for what it was. I nodded, swallowed hard, and said, Thanks, Robert. There wasn't much more to say after that. The ICU wing at St. Vincent wasn't like in the movies. No soft piano music, no whispering doctors, no poetic last words. It was all humming machines, blinking monitors, and the low whir of central air that somehow made everything feel even colder. The place smelled like sterile regrets and lemon-scented bleach. When I walked in, I brought with me the kind of silence that made nurses look twice. Not because I was dangerous, but because I looked like I'd already made peace with something they didn't want to ask about. Nina was lying there in a sea of white linens, tubes, and wires running out of her like a malfunctioning marionette. Her face was pale, framed by hair that used to smell like lavender and now just smelled like hospital plastic and whatever was left of her bad decisions. I stood by the door, not moving. Not because I couldn't, but because I needed to see if my presence would stir anything in me. It didn't. Just a hollow kind of curiosity, like watching a burning house you don't live in anymore. Then she opened her eyes, and the first words out of her mouth? You told her, didn't you? You told Harper. No, thank God you're here. No, I thought I was going to die. No apology. Just accusation. Classic Nina, even at gunpoint, somehow still the victim of everyone else's choices. Walked closer, slow and steady like I was approaching a cornered animal, not a wife full of bullet holes and lies. I didn't have to tell her, I said, keeping my voice low and calm. She figured it out all by herself. Guess Colin wasn't as careful as you thought. She looked away. I saw the tremble in her jaw, not from pain, but from the realization that the story she'd written in secret had finally run out of blank pages. You're happy he's dead, she said, and there was venom in it. I tilted, my head as if considering it like a business proposal. No, I said slowly. I'm not happy. I'm just not surprised. A man who plays with matches shouldn't act shocked when the house catches fire. That's when she snapped. You did this. You drove me to it. Always distant. Always cold. I cut her off with a raised finger, not out of anger, just boredom. No, Nina. You drove yourself. Straight into a motel with a man whose biggest accomplishment in life was owning a Tesla and a Costco membership. And now you're lying in a hospital bed shot by a woman who apparently loved him more than you did. The heart monitor beeped faster. The nurse at the station looked up. Before things could escalate, 2 security guards started toward me. Big guys, the type who think moving fast makes up for reading slow. I turned to them and said calmly, but with enough edge to slice a tomato, "I've already given my full statement to Officers Williams and Keene. Unless either of you is a judge or a registered therapist, I suggest you take 2 steps back and save yourselves a lawsuit." They hesitated. I walked past them without a glance. On the way to the elevator, I passed a vending machine labeled Fresh Snacks. Inside, a single-wrapped Danish had expired in 2023 and had somehow turned the color of rusted pennies. It felt oddly poetic. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed. It was Linda. "Harper's lawyer pulled a rabbit out of a hat," she said before I could even say hello. "Judge ordered psychiatric evaluation. She's being transferred to the behavioral unit instead of jail." "That's impressive," I said, unlocking my truck. She told the court she thought Colin was a demon in disguise, claimed his eyes turned black when he lied. Her lawyer doubled down with some story about trauma-induced psychosis. Judge bought it. I whistled low. "She's clever," I said. "She's dangerous," Linda corrected. "Maybe both," I said. Either way, she got further than Nina ever did. 2 days later, I visited the psych ward. Not because I felt sorry for Harper. She didn't strike me as the kind of woman who needed pity. But because I needed to see if there was something real underneath the headlines and handcuffs. She was sitting in the visitor's room, wearing those awful gray sweatpants and a hoodie with "Property of St. Vincent Behavioral Health" stitched across the front like a college sweatshirt for the damned. When she saw me, she grinned. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Receipts and Revenge himself," she said. I sat down. "I brought you a cookie. Thought about hiding a file inside it, but figured that's too cliché." She laughed. And not the unhinged kind. The sharp, knowing kind. Like she was 3 steps ahead of everyone in the room and pretending to play catch-up for fun. "You know," she said, picking at the edge of her plastic ID bracelet, "Colin told me he loved me the same morning he checked into that motel. He said he needed clarity. You believe that?" "Clarity." "I believe he needed an alibi," I said. She nodded, still smiling. "You're not wrong." There was a pause. Then she leaned in, lowered her voice. "You ever think maybe I wasn't crazy? Maybe I just did what everyone else wanted to do but didn't have the guts?" I looked at her, studying her face. No remorse, no chaos, just razor-sharp calm. "Maybe," I said, "or maybe you just beat karma to the punch." She laughed again. Same difference. The courtroom didn't look like justice. It looked like a discount hotel ballroom someone forgot to decorate. Pale blue carpet that had seen one too many spilled coffees and silent breakdowns. Fluorescent lights flickering like a dying conscience. And that cheap wooden podium where people went to lose marriages, custody, or both. Nina sat across from me, dressed in a beige blazer that probably cost more than the car she used to meet Colin in. Her makeup was flawless, the kind of paint someone wears not to impress, but to survive. She didn't look at me once. Just kept whispering to her attorney, flipping through paperwork like she was deciding which coupons to redeem for sympathy. The judge was a woman in her 60s, gray hair tied back so tight it looked like it could snap. Her nameplate said, "Ono, Miriam Chase," but her eyes said, "I've seen it all, and none of it impressed me." Nina's lawyer made a half-hearted case for spousal support, talked about emotional distress, loss of stability, and financial disruption due to trauma. Judge Chase held up one of the photo exhibits, a blurry picture of Nina and Colin wrapped around each other in a parking garage like tangled earbuds. "You were emotionally distressed while parked in a Tesla with someone else's husband?" she asked flatly. Nina's mouth twitched. The judge didn't wait for an answer. "You can work, Mrs. Carter. And frankly, you're going to need to. This isn't a tragedy. It's a consequence." Just like that, the gavel fell. Outside the courthouse, I didn't feel triumphant. There was no victory lap, no orchestral soundtrack swelling behind me, just a strange, almost surgical clarity, like something toxic had been removed, and now I was left with the ghost of where it used to live. I went home, kicked off my boots, and stared at the wall for a full 10 minutes. There was a photo still hanging in the hallway, one I hadn't taken down, maybe out of laziness, maybe out of some twisted nostalgia. It was me, Nina, and her parents, all laughing on the dock at Lake Durant. We looked like a toothpaste commercial for happiness. I almost didn't recognize myself in the picture. That guy was smiling with his whole face. Must have been nice to be that dumb. Later that week, I visited Harper again. She was in the recreational area this time, painting something on a thick square of canvas. It looked like chaos at first, reds and blacks and smears of orange, until I realized it was a motel room. The ugly floral bedspread, a lamp knocked over, a shadowy figure by the door. It was the scene. Her scene, immortalized in acrylic. "You're painting crime scenes now?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Therapist says it's healthy. I say it's cheaper than a lawyer." I sat down next to her. "I'm surprised you're still here," she said, after a beat. I told myself I'd come until it felt unnecessary. And? Still feels necessary. She paused, dipped her brush into a jar of dirty water. "You know," she said, "if you'd found out sooner, like, really caught them before all this, what would you have done?" It wasn't a loaded question. She asked it like someone wondering if you prefer pancakes or waffles. I leaned back, in the chair, and let the question hang in the air like old perfume. "Probably the same damn thing," I said finally, but with less surprise, she smirked. "You ever think about what came first, the betrayal or the distance?" I looked at her. Every day. She nodded like that was the only honest answer she'd heard all week. We sat there for a while, in the quiet hum of recycled air and unresolved thoughts. No flirting, no forced bonding, just two people sitting in the aftermath like survivors at a bus stop, waiting for a ride that may never come. That night, I made a decision. I didn't pack up and run away to the mountains. I didn't change my name or burn my wedding photos in some cinematic closure ritual. I just did one small, quiet thing. I took down the picture from the hallway, the one at the lake, but I didn't throw it away. I slid it into the bottom drawer of my desk, under a folder marked miscellaneous, because even lies, the good ones, the ones that feel warm while they last, deserve a drawer of their own.